Hi everyone, let's talk about Laura Marling, a singer-songwriter from the UK that's been making music since the 2000s. This is her 7th album. I was not too familiar with Laura Marling before I saw this album pop up on an album aggregator website, and I was like, I'll check it out. I was also very intrigued by the genres that were attached to this album, like chamber folk and of course singer-songwriter, as well as maybe Americana music too. So Laura got me involved into this record, and I also heard a single to this album prior, Held Down, one that I thoroughly enjoyed. I loved the instrumentation on this song, and the songwriting was really good too. Before diving headfirst into this new album of hers, I wanted to familiarize myself with Laura Marling, so I listened to some of her more acclaimed albums, such as I Speak Because I Can, as well as Once I Was an Eagle, and her previous album, Semper Femina. I didn't listen to all of her albums, so don't question me on something that came out from her debut album, but from what I can tell, she has been making music in this contemporary folk and chamber folk for years, and this album is no different. The only difference I see mostly is that this record seems a little more stripped back compared to her previous albums. It doesn't have the same campiness as a lavish singer-songwriter album does, but it's also not the most boring kind of sound you get from this genre. Again, Laura is taking it back on this album. She is being a little more acoustic, showcasing her vocals a little more as well, and all the more better because I genuinely think this album is really good. 10 tracks, 36 minutes, is one of her shorter albums to date, but it still has the same amount of material that you would get on a normal Laura Marling album. The songwriting is impeccable, the performances are really good too. Every time I'm listening to this record, I get the image in my mind of Laura and her backing band on a stage, and it's just me sitting front row of a crowd and her just singing to the audience. What's really great about this album is that it feels very organic. From the acoustic guitar that's played throughout this entire record to the pianos and the strings as well as the percussion, but most importantly the vocals, which are treated with a lot of care but are also, again, very organic, very natural. Sometimes there's a little bit of a quiver in her voice that happens that I just, oh god, every time my heart flutters. There's also a little bit of a prowess that happens with her vocals throughout this record. I find it so intriguing to listen to because I'm not really overwhelmed by this sense of boredom listening to this record as I would maybe with some other singer-songwriter albums. Maybe because the songwriting isn't that captivating, or maybe the vocalist isn't that good of a vocalist. I think everything works so well and works in harmony on this album. From the instruments to the vocals, again to the percussion, which it doesn't happen often on this record, but when it does, it just adds another layer to a song. Like for example, the opening track, Alexandra, which is kind of your typical singer-songwriter structure that you would get. You start at the beginning, you build into a chorus, start again, you build into another chorus. But the way each instrument builds on top of one another and the way the percussion also builds as well, it kind of gets a little heavier as the song progresses. It just builds into this very lavish and ornately arranged song that is just, mwah. You also get subtle moments on this record that don't incorporate a lot of instruments, like the track The End of the Affair. This could lead to a stale moment like the track Hope We Meet Again, which personally kind of drags on a little too long. I wasn't really as captivated with this song compared to the rest of the songs on this album. However, that's just a minor flaw with this record. I can listen to the rest of the songs just fine. What's interesting about each track on this album is that it kind of has its own story. Like the track Only the Strong, which is basically just a mantra of only the strong survive, keep persevering. I also like the strings that are incorporated at the end of this song that almost comes as like a grand finale. Blow by Blow is a piano ballad that talks about Laura Marling in the situation of being confronted by the press. I kind of get a sense of claustrophobia on this song in particular, kind of being like boxed in. The title track of this album is really and honestly that. It's a song for their daughter in the future. It's also her kind of thinking about the things that could happen to her daughter and about the world that we live in. How it's kind of bullshit and people are going to be telling her bullshit. It's a meditation on the future to come, but it's also a very poetic way to, I guess, worry about your daughter. And like I said earlier, there's a little bit of Americana mixed into some of these songs, like on the track Held Down, which is a song that takes a lot of cues from Americana. Also, this album as a whole and Laura Marling on this album take a lot of cues from Joni Mitchell. However, it's done in a way where it feels more or less like someone being influenced by Joni Mitchell rather than someone trying to rip off Joni Mitchell. Overall, I thought this album was very beautiful, very elegant, and very sweet as well. It's also quite lush too, not as lush as her previous albums, but still pretty lush. The songwriting, the instrumentation, the percussion, almost everything about this record is really well done. And that's really it. For me personally, it's an A-. However, I am curious to know what are your thoughts and opinions on this album down below. Let me know what albums you want me to review next, and that is it. Leave a like, comment, share, do whatever you want. Let me know how I can improve future videos down below. Remember, this is only my opinion, because music is subjective.